Good morning and welcome back everybody to Mr. Christiano Reads. Today I'm going to continue reading Captain Underpants and the Perilous plot of Professor Poopypants. Where we left off yesterday, the boys and Captain Underpants had been shrunken by Professor Poopypants, and then they were trying to save the school because the school got shrunk. They were able to use Professor Poopypants' inventions to make some things bigger where they got smaller, and Captain Underpants was really small and saved the boys from the from getting rolled over by that steamroller that they had gotten by. So let's go ahead and continue reading here. Chapter 20. Extra large underpants. Fluffy and Cheeseball landed safely in the abandoned alley. "We've got to enlarge Captain Underpants so he can fight Professor Poopypants," said Fluffy. "The fate of the entire planet is in our hands." "But how can we enlarge him if we can't even see him?" asked Cheeseball. "Good question," said Fluffy. So remember, Cheeseball and Fluffy are Harold and George. "Wait," said Cheeseball. "I've got an idea." He called out as loud as he could, "Captain Underpants! We can't see you, but if you can hear us, fly over and land on my finger. We have a machine that can make you big again." The boys waited a few seconds. "Look, Fluffy," said Cheeseball. "There he is. See? He's that little tiny speck on my finger. Now just aim the machine at that little speck, but don't zap my finger, okay?" "Don't worry," said Fluffy. "I'm a great shot with this thing. I won't zap your glazert." "Oops, sorry." The good news was that Captain Underpants had grown larger and was now visible. The bad news was, well, let's just say that Cheeseball was going to have an awful hard time picking his nose with his right hand from now on. Fluffy gave Captain Underpants a few more shots from the Goosey Grow 4000. The waistband warrior grew and grew and grew until he was 10 stories high. Whoa, check out his finger. It's a pretty big finger you got there. Finally, the colossal captain headed towards the preposterous professor. A showdown was about to begin. The little boy from chapter 13 happened to be walking by with his mother again. He looked up and saw a giant man in his underwear getting ready to fight a huge robot in the middle of the city. "Mommy?" said the little boy. "What?" asked his mother. Never mind," said the boy. Chapter 21. The incredible, graphic, violent chapter in Fliporama. So remember, Fliporama is where I hold the page and I flip it and you see if you can see what's happening here. All right. So here we go. Professor Poopypants packs a powerful punch. Got Captain Underpants, but the head-button hero halted the horror. So now Captain Underpants is going to perform some... Oh, I've got to hold this book better. Headbutt. And then we got the brief wearing bandit battled the bionic behemoth. What's he gonna do? He's kneeling down. Is it possible? Is he gonna kick him? Let's try and get a better handle on this here. Interesting way to take down Professor Poopypants. The waistband warrior won the war. Boy, oh boy, this flip-a-rama's really got me going this morning. Chapter 22, the 22nd chapter. Professor Poopypants had been defeated, and everybody in the school cheered wildly. They were still small, but at least they got their old names back. I'm sure glad I don't have a silly name anymore, said Miss Ribble. Me too, said Mr. Rected. Hooray, cried George. Let's all give Captain Underpants a big hand. Harold was not amused. Oops, said George. Sorry. That's okay, said Harold. Just give me that invention thing so I can zap us back to normal. Harold held the Greasy Grow 4000 in his giant hand and zapped George and himself. That is, every part of himself except for his giant hand. Blizzard! Suddenly, George and Harold were back to their normal sizes again. Boy, said George, we sure have tested the limits of science today. Yup, said Harold. And the limits of our readers' willing suspension of disbelief. Yeah, said George. That too. George and Harold picked up their tiny school and carried it back to where it belonged. George got ready to zap the school with the Goosey Grow 4000, while Harold prepared to zap Captain Underpants with the Shrinky Pig 2000. I sure hope this works, said George. Me too. Chapter 23. To make a long story short, it did. That's a pretty short chapter there. Looks like Captain Underpants is coming back to size. Chapter 24, the chapter before the last chapter. George took Captain Underpants over to the bushes behind the school and ordered him to dress back up like Mr. Krupp. Let's go, bub, said George. We haven't got all day. Then Harold had some fun with the garden hose. In no time at all, Mr. Krupp was back to his old nasty self again. Soon the cops showed up to arrest Professor Poopypants. There's one thing I don't understand, said George to the professor. Wouldn't it have been smarter to change your own name instead of forcing the rest of the world to change theirs? Gosh, said Professor Poopypants. I never thought of that. A few weeks later, George and Harold received a letter from the Pickle State Penitentiary. Dear George and Harold, sorry about trying to overthrow the world and everything. I've decided to take your advice and change my name so that people won't laugh at me anymore. From now on, I'll be going by my grandfather's name on my mother's side. It's such a relief knowing that nobody will ever make fun of me again. Signed, Tippy Tinkle Trousers. Professor Poopypants has got some problems picking some names. Ha 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 ha. Oh, chapter 25, the chapter after the chapter before the last chapter. You know, said George, I really learned something today. What's that? Asked Harold. I learned that it's not nice to make fun of people, said George. Wow, said Harold. I think this is the first time one of our stories ever had a moral. Probably the last time, too, said George. Let's hope so, said Harold. So it looks like things are getting back to normal back at the school. But George and Harold had forgotten all about their other moral that they had learned the other way, which was don't ever, ever hypnotize your principal. Because if you do, your life can change from bad to worse. At a snap of a finger. Uh-oh. Teacher caught them skateboarding in the hallway and snapped their finger. What's going to happen to Mr. Krupp? Oh no, screamed Harold. Here we go again, screamed George. Tra-la-la. And there you have it. The conclusion to Captain Underpants and the perilous plot of Professor Poopypants. Boy, oh boy, those boys and Mr. Krupp really find a way to get themselves into some kind of trouble, but they always get out of it. This is a pretty good one. Professor Poopypants learned a little bit of a lesson. The boys learned a lesson that it's not fun, not nice to make fun of other people. And in what we're dealing with today, with all the things going on, it's a pretty good message to get across. You know, let's learn to be nice to one another. And, you know, this is what we need to be doing. And this is a nice little story that George and Harold learned about being nice to people, along with their funny things that they did in the story. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to leave you on that note. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll see you next time on Mr. Christiano Reads. Bye-bye.